Nobody had ever seen Shohei Ohtani like this before. The man who is always calm, always composed, always the steady and unshakable leader of Samurai Japan, had finally reached his breaking point. The moment the final out was recorded in Japan's game against the Czech Republic, something inside Ohtani snapped. What happened next in the locker room, in the hallway, and on the tarmac where the team's flight to Miami was waiting, sent shockwaves through the entire Japanese national team and left manager Ibata standing with his head down, filled with regret, quietly saying the words that no manager ever wants to say. "I'm sorry to Shohei." This is the full story of what happened, why Ohtani reached his absolute limit, which 2 NPB players were found guilty of behavior that Ohtani described as despicable, and what discipline has now been officially announced. This is a story that every baseball fan needs to hear, because it reveals a side of Samurai Japan that nobody expected to see at the 2026 World Baseball Classic. From the outside, Samurai Japan has looked dominant throughout the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Their record is impressive, their offense has been powerful, and their pitching staff has shown flashes of brilliance that remind the world why Japan is always considered one of the favorites at this tournament. Fans watching from the stands and from home have seen a team that appears focused, united, and fully committed to the goal of winning the WBC title for Japan. But behind closed doors, the situation inside the Samurai Japan camp has been far more complicated than anyone realized. There have been tensions simmering beneath the surface for several days, tensions that the coaching staff has tried desperately to manage and suppress before they boil over into something that could damage the team's chemistry and derail their entire tournament campaign. Those efforts, it turns out, were not enough. Because on the night after the Czech Republic game, everything finally came to the surface in the most dramatic and explosive way possible. And it was Shohei Ohtani, the team's captain, their superstar, and the one person everyone relies on to hold the team together, who could no longer stay silent. To understand what happened that night, it is important to understand the pressure that Shohei Ohtani has been carrying throughout this tournament. From the moment Samurai Japan's roster was announced, Ohtani made it absolutely clear that winning the 2026 World Baseball Classic was his top priority. He restructured his personal schedule, he communicated directly with the Los Angeles Dodgers organization to ensure he would be fully available for the tournament, and he arrived at camp in the best physical condition of his career. More than that, Ohtani took on a level of leadership responsibility that went far beyond what is typically expected of even the greatest players. He personally spoke with younger players on the roster, offering guidance, encouragement, and technical advice. He stayed late after practice sessions to work with teammates who were struggling. He set the standard for professionalism, preparation, and dedication every single day. Everything Ohtani did was aimed at one goal and one goal only: bringing the WBC title back to Japan. This is why what 2 NPB players did was so deeply personal to Ohtani. And this is why, when he finally found out the full truth of what had been happening behind his back, his reaction was as powerful and as emotional as anything anyone had ever seen from him. According to sources extremely close to the Samurai Japan camp, the trouble began several days before the Czech Republic game. 2 NPB players on the roster, whose names have now been confirmed by team management, were engaging in behavior that was completely incompatible with the standards and values that Ohtani had worked so hard to establish within the team. The details of their behavior were deeply troubling. These 2 players had been consistently disrespecting the team's training schedule, arriving late to preparation sessions, and showing a level of casual disregard for the team's collective preparation that angered coaching staff and fellow players alike. But it was not simply the lateness or the lack of discipline that caused the most damage. It was what these players were doing instead of preparing with their teammates that crossed a line that could not be ignored. These 2 players had been spending their time engaging in activities completely unrelated to baseball, neglecting their physical preparation, and most seriously, speaking negatively about the team's leadership and direction in conversations that eventually found their way back to the coaching staff and to Ohtani himself. They had reportedly made disrespectful comments about the team's training methods, questioned decisions made by Manager Ibata, and in a development that hit Ohtani the hardest, had spoken dismissively about the standards of professionalism that Ohtani had been trying to instill in the group. When Ohtani heard these details, the effect was immediate and impossible to contain. The locker room after the Czech Republic game was supposed to be a place of celebration. Japan had won, performed well, and was preparing to advance to the next stage of the tournament with momentum and confidence. Players were beginning to relax, laugh, and enjoy the victory together. The atmosphere, for a brief moment, felt exactly as it should have felt. Then Ohtani walked in. Those who were present in that locker room described the moment as one they will never forget for as long as they live. Ohtani's expression said everything before he spoke a single word. The usual warmth in his eyes was completely gone. In its place was something nobody had ever seen from him before. A cold, controlled, and absolute fury that filled the entire room the moment he stepped through the door. The noise and laughter stopped instantly. Every single player turned to look at him. Even the coaching staff, who were standing on the far side of the room, went completely still. Ohtani looked directly at the two NPB players. He did not shout. He did not need to. His voice was calm, quiet, and devastatingly direct. He told them clearly and without any hesitation that he knew exactly what they had been doing and exactly what they had been saying. He told them that their behavior was not only a betrayal of the team, but a betrayal of everyone in Japan who was watching and supporting Samurai Japan at this tournament. He told them that the millions of fans, the young players across Japan who dream of one day wearing this uniform, and every player on this roster who had given everything to be here, all deserved better than what these two players had chosen to give. Then came the moment that truly shocked everyone in that room. Ohtani said, clearly and with absolute finality, "Enough. I have reached my limit." What followed was a sequence of events that nobody in the Samurai Japan camp had ever experienced before. Ohtani, still in his uniform, walked directly to his personal belongings, picked up his luggage, and made it clear to everyone around him that he was not prepared to continue as if nothing had happened. Reports indicate that he refused to board the team's flight to Miami until the situation was formally addressed, formally acknowledged, and formal disciplinary action was taken against the two players responsible. The scene on the tarmac was described by witnesses as one of the most tense and emotionally charged moments in the history of the Japanese national baseball team. Ohtani stood firm. He was not angry in a reckless or irrational way. He was angry in the way that a true leader becomes angry when the values he has fought to protect are treated with contempt. He was not going to move until things were made right. Manager Ibata, faced with a situation he had never encountered before in his managerial career, immediately called an emergency meeting with team officials, coaching staff, and the players involved. The meeting was urgent, intense, and deeply serious. Everyone in that room understood that the future of Japan's entire WBC campaign depended on what was decided in the next few hours. Manager Ibata, to his enormous credit, did not hesitate. He made the decision that the situation required, and he made it without delay. The two NPB players were formally disciplined. Their roles within the team were immediately restricted. Their playing time for the upcoming matches was significantly reduced, and both players were required to formally address the entire team and acknowledge the impact of their behavior on the group. But perhaps the most significant moment of that entire evening came when Manager Ibata walked over to Ohtani privately, looked him directly in the eyes, and said the words that he knew needed to be said. "I'm sorry to Shohei." Ibata acknowledged that the situation should have been addressed sooner, that the warning signs had been visible and that management had not acted quickly enough to protect the team's standards and protect Ohtani from the burden of having to carry this alone. Those who witnessed this private moment between Ibata and Ohtani described it as deeply emotional. Ohtani, who had been carrying this weight silently for days, was visibly moved by Ibata's words. He accepted the apology with the same grace and dignity that has always defined his character, and he made it clear that his only concern, from beginning to end, had been the well-being of the team and the integrity of Japan's WBC campaign. After the disciplinary meeting concluded and the situation was formally resolved, Ohtani rejoined his teammates. The atmosphere within the group had completely transformed. Players who had been frustrated, confused, and uncertain about the team's internal dynamics now felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. Seeing Ohtani stand up so fearlessly for the team's values had reminded every single player on that roster exactly what it means to wear the Samurai Japan uniform. Several players reportedly approached Ohtani individually after the meeting to express their support and their gratitude. They told him that his willingness to speak up, To refuse to simply accept the situation and move on had made the entire team stronger. One veteran NPB player was heard telling a teammate quietly, "This is why he is the captain. This is why there is nobody like Shohei." By the time the team finally boarded their flight to Miami, the mood had shifted entirely. The tension that had been building for days had been released. The issues that had been threatening to fracture the group had been addressed directly and decisively, and Samurai Japan was moving forward with a unity and a clarity of purpose that had not been present before. Shohei Ohtani sat quietly on that flight, looking out the window as Japan disappeared beneath the clouds. Those sitting near him said he looked calm, focused, and at peace. The storm had passed. The team was together, and Samurai Japan was heading to Miami with something far more valuable than a winning record. They were heading to Miami with the knowledge that when it truly mattered, their leader had stood up for what was right, had refused to accept anything less than the best, and had reminded every single one of them why they came here in the first place. The World Baseball Classic knockout rounds are approaching. The opponents will be stronger, the pressure will be greater, and the margin for error will be almost non-existent. But after everything that happened on that unforgettable night, nobody inside the Samurai Japan camp has any doubt about one thing. With Shohei Ohtani leading the way, this team is ready for whatever comes next. Thank you for watching. If the story moved you or surprised you, please share it with a fellow baseball fan. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments section below. We would love to hear what you think about what happened inside the Samurai Japan camp. And if you want to stay updated on all the latest and most dramatic stories from the 2026 World Baseball Classic, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single moment.